Everything that you experience in this life comes through the mind. Every contact that you have with others, everything that you do. So if you want to have a better experience of your time on the planet, it's pretty important that you train that. Because if you don't train that, you're literally leaving connection, fulfillment, joy, fun, productivity, success, money on the table.
Welcome to our next episode of the Unstoppable Podcast, episode 13. I'm joined by my great friend, Kyran O'Neill, Mr. Total Mental Performance. For those of you that don't know, Kyran is a mental performance consultant and he helps high performers and business owners improve how they perform mentally, which is great. And I'm excited to hear more about this.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on the pod.
Epic. And how did we first meet? Tell the guests, give them some context, because we've known each other for a good while now.
Coming up to 3 years? Yeah, 3 years. You came over here on holiday. So I'm based out here in Dubai. I've been here for 4 years. You came over, which holiday was it?
2020 or 2021. It was just whenever holidays were allowed again.
Yeah, and I can't even remember exactly where we met. I just remember us chatting for ages and having loads of laughs. And every time Johnny's over, we always patch up and always have a good time. And yeah, we've got a lot of shared values too, which always helps. And we have a bloody good laugh too.
Big time. That's what it's all about. So, total mental performance. I think I'm going to go straight in and ask you this because this is on my mind too. What's the difference between mental performance and mental health?
So, I like to use a really simple metaphor to describe the difference between mental performance and mental health. Mental health is like an on the gym floor PT that works with the general population to help them feel a little bit better and be a little bit healthier in what they do. Whereas a mental performance coach is more like a strength and conditioning coach that's working with world champion athletes that are looking to go on and push. So the key difference really is around ambition, it's around drive, and it's around performance, because the advice that we would give to somebody that's just looking to be mentally okay versus somebody that really wants to go and drive and win and perform in their respective field, it's a different focus. So that's probably what I would say is the key difference between the two.
And for you, what led you on the path that you now help people with mental performance? Because it always fascinates me, because mental health, psychology, mental performance, it's all things that I'm interested in and I care about, but I always wonder how the actual coach or the mentor or the advisor got into it, because maybe you went through some hardship yourself.
Yeah, so for me, it all started with boxing. 12 years old, walked into a boxing gym, loved it. I was an undiagnosed ADHD kid, so I really struggled to concentrate at school. I could only concentrate on the things that I really loved and I enjoyed. I was forgetful. I was always forgetting my homework. I was always getting told off for talking too much, for not being able to sit still, for fidgeting, for getting up in class. And what happens, particularly with ADHD, is, which, by the way, in business owners, it's predicted that 29% of entrepreneurs have ADHD, diagnosed or undiagnosed, which is really statistically significant given that the general population, it's estimated, is only 4%. So that is, and it's only suggested that 1% are diagnosed. So there's a really big jump. But anyway, so as a kid with undiagnosed ADHD, I was always been told, you're not good enough. I was always being told, sit still, or I did very average in my academics. Like, you're underachieving, you should be achieving A's and A stars, you're only hitting C's, why can't you apply yourself, why can't you stop talking? So that I picked up a lot of messaging that I wasn't enough as I am. I also grew up in a council house in a really nice area. So with a global context that I have today, I was one of the luckiest kids on the planet to have the upbringing I did. But how I felt at the school that I went to and my peers, I felt unworthy and not enough. So that put a big chip on my shoulder to prove everyone wrong. And up until about the age of 12, 13, 14, I kind of was still like not very good. I wasn't actually a natural boxer, but I was really bad at football. My dad was my football manager. We were bottom of the bottom league and he benched me every game. And that was just like, not even my dad thinks I'm good enough. My teachers don't think I'm good enough. I'm constantly getting told off. And boxing was the first thing where I was like, well, fuck you, I'm going to prove you wrong. Because you can't get substituted in boxing, which is a big bonus. But it's also all on you. Like, you're the star of the show. So I was just fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. And I lost my first fight. Everybody thought I won. There was a big shock in the crowd. Even my opponent's dad come up to me and said, I thought you won that. And I lost on points. And what I learned was I can't let fights go to the judges. So I went on a stoppage spree of stopping my next 4 opponents. I'm not a knockout puncher. I just would overwhelm them. From there, I went from like hardly anywhere. Like, I shouldn't really have been fighting the guys I was fighting, but I was 11 fights in, fighting for the national title as a junior against kids that had 30 fights, 40 fights, 50 fights. And boxing for me was really like that thing. And if you think about the sport of boxing, it's all performance. How can you be faster, stronger, fitter, tougher, more clever, more tactically astute? So that environment did a hell of a lot around the performance side. But boxing's a weight-based sport. So I was crippled with anxiety. I was trying to cut weight all the time. See the size I am now? When I was on the England team as a man, I was 56 kilos, this same height. Can you imagine me?
I remember seeing the photos that day and thinking, wow.
It's not good, is it?
Yeah.
Not good. So that led to a binge eating disorder, led to chronic anxiety, depression. I actually ended up trying to take my own life. I really had a really tough time. So through a lot of therapy and a lot of mindset coaching and performance coaching from Hazel Gale, who's a former kickboxing world champion, boxing, I think, British champion, and just a phenomenal coach and performance coach and therapist. She like changed the whole thing. She flipped everything on its head. And for me, that's kind of the crux of the mental health side. So I'm a qualified cognitive hypnotherapist and NLP practitioner, and that's kind of where I was really fascinated by mental health. And that's where I went and restudied much later on. There's another part of the story of kind of what led to me to that point. But it was really boxing. After boxing, I was in software sales, so corporate sales for 6 years. So I was selling in London, and I was one of the youngest guys on the sales floor, selling into not only Europe, but into the States as well. And these were really complex e-commerce and data analytics solutions. And that's another performance environment, because just like boxing, you're only as good as your last fight, you're only as good as your last month. And I was working for Rakuten, who sponsored Barcelona Football Club. So everyone on that team was an international team. So there were guys on the sales floor, not just from our divisions, but from other divisions, from across Europe, from America. There were some from Japan. So I'm like this young kid in this environment where everybody's great at what they do. And I just worked and I worked and I worked, and I'd get into the office for 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be selling into Europe 8 a.m. to 2 to 3 p.m. And then I realized if I sold into the US in the nighttime, because they were behind, I could double my commission. So I was doing that. And that world of high performance in corporate was so intense. Again, it was a performance game. And then eventually I made enough money to not have to work. So I took a year out. I restudied as a therapist, restudied psychology, started helping people for free. And the 100 hours I did for free, I realized it was only my ambitious clients I enjoyed working with. That was the common thread, where I was like, yeah, you know what, I want to work with you. I'm really enjoying this. So then that's when I started to realize, well, most of my clients don't need a therapist, they don't need therapy, they don't need mental health support. They're actually good, but they want to get to great. And that's kind of where I built that niche, so to speak, of those individuals. Everybody started paying me. Very quickly, I did a couple of public speaking talks, and I'm hiring coaches. And now I've got 2 companies. So I've got Total Mental Performance, that serves coaches and business owners in that space. We do a lot in the fitness industry, is obviously how we cross paths. And then I've got KO Consulting. So that's where I'm mainly working in corporate. I'm mainly working with business owners, entrepreneurs, high net worths in that space to really achieve 3 things: becoming more calm, becoming more clear, and getting more shit done. So I don't touch their business. I change the way in which they think and feel, and they almost always end up making more money. Not because I tell them, they know that stuff miles better than me, but I can help them optimize the mind and the way in which they feel in their bodies, not through any training, just through the way they think, and everything changes. So that's kind of like how I ended up in this space. There's a load of other smaller stories within the other, I don't know, a character arc, so to speak, if it's like a film, but that's kind of.
And you talked there about going from good to great. So many people want to go from good to great because they've achieved loads in their business or their personal life, and there's a gap between where they are and where they want to be. So if there was someone listening who's achieved a lot of success in their lives, and people from the outside in might look at them and see them as the pinnacle of success. What's a practical strategy that someone can apply straight away from tomorrow to improve their mental performance?
One practical. It's quite hard because it's very, very open. Because I could say journaling.
Yeah.
If you do journaling, you'll become more self-aware, you become more calm, more confident.
Why?
What with journaling?
Journaling, yeah, it's just out of interest.
Yeah. So often a lot of our thoughts are burning up energy that we're not even aware of. So by doing your thinking on paper, instead of you having all of these thoughts and all of this noise happening, you can actually start to calm down. You can start to actually get a lot more clear on what's happening. But it's only when you're in the middle of it and it's all racing around and things are feeling a little bit noisy, that's when journaling can help. But really the bit I'm interested in is, where is a high performer burning up energy that they don't need to burn up? Where are they feeling a little bit more stressed, a little bit more anxious? Where is all of their focus and attention going? Because if you can optimize for the things that you're burning up energy unconsciously for, well, you'll free up more mental resources to actually just be more productive, and you'll have more energy to go and get more done. In terms of like, here's one thing, it's quite hard because every mind is unique, and you know what works for one. I tell you what, here's one thing. It's not the most practical, but if you can learn to change your relationship with your thoughts, and if you can learn to catch your thoughts and not to respond to every thought, and you can learn to categorize what's a thought and what's a task, you get a hell of a lot done. Practically, how do you do that? There's a little bit more work required to do that. But yeah, that's probably a big thing, I'd say.
The reason I ask is mental performance, if someone's never been on a journey to achieve mental performance or improve their mental performance, they won't necessarily know what to do, and that's where someone like yourself comes in. But I think the reason I ask that is because sometimes people in my world will tell me that mindset, mental performance is wishy-washy, and that they don't need mindset. So if someone was thinking, I don't need mindset, I'm fine the way I am, I'm achieving really good things, why would someone who feels like they don't need it actually benefit from it?
I don't think they will.
Because they're not open to change?
Correct. They already know it. You can't coach people that already know it. If you already know it, it's a waste of time. So sometimes when people get in touch with me, I'll call that out very early. I sense you already feel like you know everything, thus I can't help you. And that goes one of two ways. They usually go, yeah, I do, and never hear from them again. But then they feel a bit shortchanged. What do you mean? Well, every question I ask, you've already got the answer. You already know it. So what can I teach you if you already know it? And then they go away and they kind of think about it, and then eventually they come back and go, well, what am I not seeing? And then they come in with a slightly more open mind, and then you can ask a few questions around that. But I do think mindset in general, I don't like the word mindset. I don't really put myself in that category because, I mean, most mindset coaches, if you ask them what does it mean, they don't even know what it means, right? Mindset, what is the setting of the mind? What is the psychological environment upon which you have set up for you to interact with the world, for you to go and achieve what it is that you want to achieve from the performance side? So, yeah, I mean, those are like super skeptical. What's the point? Just like somebody that doesn't believe that, you know, online fitness training will work. It's like, well, why spend your time there? But some of the most successful people that aren't just successful insofar as the money and the material things, but the ones that actually enjoy their existence, they already know that they're a student. And that's who I coach. I coach students who are ready to go, I know there's another league and I'm ready to do that. So I don't really have an issue with clients that aren't open to that, because most...
It's just not a good fit.
Oh, they kind of filter themselves out anyway. So the guys and girls that come to me, it's mainly all my clients are men these days, they're in a place where they know there's another level within them. They know they're underperforming, but they just don't know what. They're just unclear. And it's that feeling of, I know there's another level, but I don't know what. And the curiosity and the openness that they have to go, well, let me try something new. Because if you do the same thing that you've always done, you'll always get the same results that you've always got. And that's the client that I work with, to kind of go, well, maybe there is something else in here. But the skeptics, I kind of let them be skeptics, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you can't work with everyone, and it's like whenever someone reaches out to me and they're like, "Hey, I really want to work on my health, energy, and performance," and then we kind of come down to the actual logistics and why they want to do that. You soon realize that you get the people like, "Oh, well, I've always been a good trainer. I've always kind of been into fitness. I've always been doing something," and then I'm like, "Well, why are you on this call then?" There must be a reason. There must be something that you're potentially struggling with, and being resistant to change is, I think, well, you're the expert. Why would someone be resistant to change? Why wouldn't they want to change?
Oh, let me flip the question back. Why would you want to change?
Me personally, or
no, just in general. And what I mean by that is change, evolutionary, equaled danger, equaled risk. So we come from generations of fearful people. Our ancestors that survived weren't the risk takers that would jump off a cliff or fight a lion. They're all dead. Those guys without the fear of change gene, they didn't make it. So we don't want to change. Change represents potentially death. But the problem is we've got the same physiological and some of the same psychological hardware than we did when we were in the jungle. And you got lucky if you found a bush full of berries and maybe a dead cow somewhere. Like, you were really fortunate to do that. We now open the fridge and it's full of food. And if it's really kicking off, we call the police and they'll come and deal with it. You know, we're not really dealing with the same challenges that our physiology is wired for. So that's why people don't want to change. But entrepreneurs know that every single piece of change in their business is where the opportunity is. If markets shift, there's an opportunity to pivot to serve a certain need. If even in recessions and when markets crash, some of the biggest companies are born in those moments because the whole world's behavior has changed. Thus, new markets are created. So I think humans in general don't like change because it's evolutionary. But for entrepreneurs and business owners that are really looking to win, those are the ones that the companies that survive are the ones that change and adapt. If you look at the Japanese, their companies are unkillable because they are constantly wired to change. You look at Panasonic and Sony, they weren't always in TVs, they weren't always in home goods. You know, they were in so many different things because they've listened to the market and they've adapted. You look at Xerox. Xerox is a big photocopying company. You know, it's still a very, very big business, huge corporate company. But they didn't really adapt and change when people stopped using photocopiers. And as a result, their business died. So there's always going to be a smaller percentage of the population that runs at change, but we're not really built to change.
Is there any link in physical performance and mental performance?
Oh, fucking absolutely. Like, without a doubt. What's really interesting is most studies show that actually more cardio is better for mental health, mental performance, and generally feeling better. You still need weight training to be robust and be strong, but actually you got to think, we live in a world where we don't really breathe so much. Like, our breaths are often very short. They're not so big. Whereas when you're running and you're training or you're boxing, you then so you're instantly getting more oxygen to the brain, you're instantly getting more oxygen to the blood, which calms you down. I don't know about you, but like, I always feel better when I've been pushed through more running or boxing at the end of it than I do having hit some heavy squats or deadlifts or whatever. That's not to say that them things are wrong. It's just from a mental performance standpoint, like, there's a lot more evidence suggests that's more optimal than that. Also, you got to think about your energy system. Like, if you don't have enough energy because you're not eating well, you're not training well, you're not sleeping well, then you're kind of hamstringing yourself. One thing I do with my clients is if they're having a wobbly and they're like, "Oh, Kyran, my head's just not in the game," is I'll say to them, "Okay, is this the driver or is this the car?" And if I haven't used that metaphor before, they'll say, "What do you mean?" And I'll say, the driver represents your body. No, sorry, the car represents your body, right? Have you got the right fuel inside it? Have you got the right tires? Are you sleeping well, eating well, training well? And then if the answer's no, I haven't been sleeping well, I've been smashing loads of caffeine and I've had a few drinks at the weekend, or I've just not been looking after myself, I'll say, I don't think you have a mindset issue. We can't really distinguish that yet. Let's do a week of actually getting you back on track. And then if 2 weeks from now, you're not feeling better, then we can start to understand like what's really going on. Now, if they say all of that stuff is fine, well then on the other half of that, it then comes down to, well, if the car is great, then we have a driver issue. So are you worried? Are you anxious? Are you overthinking? Are you stressed? Do you have limiting beliefs? Is there some trauma floating around that's holding you back? But that's all like irrelevant if you aren't looking after that, in my view.
Yeah, big time. So business owners, high performers love data, right? They love tracking their data whenever it comes to their health, their energy, their performance in business and in life. How can someone track data with their mental performance?
Yeah, so I track my data every single day around my mental performance. So I have a spreadsheet, and then at the end of the day, I'll review on a scale of 1 to 10 the various different points from my mental performance and my physical performance too, as to where I feel like I'm at. So things I'm measuring is calm, creativity, focus, anxiousness, distraction, energy. And what can start to happen is over time, I can start to see, okay, am I getting more energy? Am I becoming more calm? Is anxiousness starting to spike, or is that starting to go down? Outside of that, I also write down on that spreadsheet how much water I drank that day. I also write down how much food I ate, and then my sleep. So how many hours and the quality of that with my Oura Ring. And through time, I can start to see the various different trends in the data on the spreadsheet. And what I learned is if I have 2 alcoholic drinks, that's going to impact my mental performance for up to 2 days after. If I have more than 2, it can actually take me a week to get back to the same level of calm. And productivity is something else that I'm measuring on that scale of 1 to 10. But I realized that every time I would drink, all the things I wanted to go up would go down, like my calm, my focus, my productivity, my creativity. And on the flip side, anxiousness, distraction, all would fly up. And you might say, well, that's pretty obvious, right? But actually the length of the impact that had on me, I was kind of shaking it off, like, drink doesn't hit me that hard. No, it's fine. It's not a problem. But as soon as I took it out, and I didn't even do it consciously off the data, I looked at the data, I went, oh, that's a really interesting thing. And I just had a big blowout recently as well. So I kind of went back through all the numbers to see, oh, actually there is a correlation in the data. So I said, look, I'm not going to drink for a while. And then I just forgot to drink again. And 2 years later, here I am. And you can look at all my scores. Like, I am considerably better in all areas of performance without it. So that's how I use the data. Not everybody needs to, I'm tracking many other things too. Not everyone needs to go to that level of depth. But man, like, when it becomes so obvious. So another thing that would really impact me was obviously sleep. Anything below 7 hours, then no bueno. If I'm having a heavy day of 1-to-1 sessions where I'm having lots of emotional conversations, intense conversations, I actually probably need about 8.5 to 9 hours sleep to recover if I really want to fire at the same level that I can the next day. So I have a series of different markers where I'm looking at the data to understand, here's how alcohol can impact me. Here's how my sleep can impact me. If I don't train within 5 days, which is why getting seriously injured is a real problem for me. If I don't train within 5 days, my anxiety, my stress spikes, and I can just see it just through self-reported scores and everything that I'm tracking on my Oura Ring as well.
Epic. And when is your mental performance at its worst?
Alcohol was like so obvious. I cannot express like how, and a lot of people get sensitive and a bit funny about alcohol. I think any substance is what you're doing it for, but for me, alcohol was like the most obvious one. Not training was the most obvious one. Not sleeping was the obvious one. My diet, if I have lots of high sugar in my diet, like cheesecake, especially Cheesecake Factory here, oh my God, cheesecake or sugary foods, that completely scrambles my mental performance, my energy. If I have more meat, it's actually better. I find I have more clarity. You know, if I've got a really carb heavy diet, not so bueno. But a high meat and high fat diet, I notice that I can think better, feel better. It's only when I put in those refined sugars, then do I start to really start to unfocus.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and obviously looking at all that data, you're someone that's on top of it, and I think a lot of people listening won't even have tracked the basics yet, and it's cool to see someone at the top level of their own mental performance track all those markers. And I think so many people listening might think, hey, I would love to be like that, but then when life gets in the way and they're busy and their business stuff comes up and their family stuff comes up, how important is it to make time for your mental performance, and how can, when you're at your busiest, still prioritize mental performance?
Well, let's go right to the top of the tree, right? Everything that you experience in this life comes through the mind. Every contact that you have with others, everything that you do. So that's not my quote. That's Sam Harris, who's a neuroscientist and philosopher, that said that. Everything comes through the mind, everything we experience. And then the next part he says is, thus it makes sense to train the mind, given our entire human experience comes through the mind. So if you want to have a better experience of your time on the planet, it's pretty important that you train that. Because if you don't train that, you're literally leaving connection, fulfillment, joy, fun, productivity, success, money on the table by not training that. And for me personally, I know that it's taken me a long time to ingrain these habits, a really long time. But even I still have coaches and mentors in my corner that are still challenging me. I'll always have a mentor. I've never not had a coach or a mentor in my field challenging me at the highest level, because I want to be the best of the best. And even if it is a 30-minute call every couple of weeks, I know I'm going to learn something. I know they're going to hold me accountable. All the top athletes on the planet, all the top entrepreneurs on the planet have coaches. So for me, I find using a coach is a much easier way, a faster way of ingraining that. But even if you have a coach, life gets busy. So it's really simple. Over at the beginning of the day, before everybody else wakes up, you get up earlier than everyone else, and you just spend 5 to 10 minutes, so whether that's a spreadsheet, whether it's just getting a piece of paper and writing, what's my intention for the day, how am I thinking and feeling right now, or 5 minutes before bed, and just getting that out. But it's really important if you just want to perform, because all of my clients, they value ambition, they value building stuff, they value how far can I go, and they want to do cool shit, and they value growth. So the fastest thing that you can optimize if you want to change your entire reality is the way in which you think.
And it's, you shared there, you'll always have coaches in every area of your life, and I think so many people will look at you or I and say they're coaching other people, why would they need a coach? But I think it's so important, because when you're in the bottle, you can't read the label on the outside, so you're constantly in the trenches doing stuff, and then you could maybe have a call with your coach or your mentor or whoever it was, and actually get one thing and then go and take it away. And you're now in a position where you're wanting to go from good to great. So you could say you're great whenever it comes to your mental performance, but equally there's still another level for you. So whenever someone's thinking about their health, energy, performance, they might already be in a good place, but they could get to a great place, and that's going to come through coaching, having a support network, and actually being held accountable, but also being able to do the things even whenever you don't want to do them. Because I'm sure there's days where you don't want to do your data tracking, you don't want to get up earlier, it feels like a bit of a task or another task. Does it ever feel like that?
Yeah, it can do. And on that spreadsheet, it's quite wide. So not only have I got the data, but then I've also got qualitative stuff. So I'm writing down, what am I grateful for every day? Why am I grateful for that specific thing from that specific day? And I'm writing just a general brain dump. I write down any ideas that I've had. I write down any learnings, anything I learned that day, I write it down. So as I'm going back through this, almost like this scroll of my life, not only do I have all like the metrics, but then I also have loads of qualitative data and learnings. And sometimes you forget how hard things actually were because it's rose-tinted glasses, but going back into them, you can see it. But for the days I don't want to do it, I just do the data. It takes 3 minutes.
So it's like having that minimum and the maximum standard.
Correct.
Where the minimum standard is you just do this, the maximum whenever you're feeling good and you're ready for it, you do that. And it's the same with your training. I'm sure you have minimums and maximums whenever it comes to your training. You know that training is something that makes you tick, it improves your mental performance. What have you done recently to make health a priority? Because obviously you've shared how that can still have a positive impact on mental performance.
Yeah, so our mutual friend Mike, so good friend Mike's he's a black belt in BJJ, and on top of that he's coached some really top entrepreneurs, and he understands me from a fighting perspective, because fighters have a very different mentality. It's very all or nothing, it's very black and white, it's very intense, and you're kind of taught to drive yourself into the floor. So last year I was doing so many flights, I was working so hard, I got both sick and injured 7 times.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm not perfect with my physiology. I still have moments where I'm on too many flights, I'm working too hard. I just got fed up of getting sick and injured, and that's where I hired, not only a mental performance coach in my field at an elite level, working at Hollywood, presidential level in that sort of space. But I also brought Mike on my team, and I said, Mike, I need some help. So he was helping me with the psychology behind why I keep running myself into the floor, and Mike was helping me with my actual training and nutrition, because it happens a lot. Like business owners having so much stress and working so hard for so long, they just get injured and they get sick. And for me, I'd managed to break out of that pattern before, but I'd fallen back into it. And bringing Mike on my team just helped. And it helps. He lives next door.
Yeah.
Like, he lives literally down the road. So we're in the gym, on the gym floor, and he's just observing me. And that was a big thing, because, Mike used to be my client. Mm-hmm. So to then ask one of your clients for help, right, it's like, right, okay, what can we do? And that was probably the big thing for me, was hiring my own coach. But I needed somebody in person in Dubai to help me in that place. But I've had online coaches that have been amazing and incredible. But that was the big thing, was having him there, because he fights. So after our training, not only do we train in the gym together, because he's a training partner. Yeah. Afterwards, we're fighting with each other. Like, we're hitting pads and then we're rolling with each other, and it's just fucking great fun. Yeah. So that was the big thing for me, that I sort of took action on my health.
And I love that, and it's so true. And I think sometimes you just need someone there to support you, someone there to guide you, and someone there that you trust. Because being open and honest and vulnerable with someone is difficult, especially as a high performer, a business owner. Sometimes you don't want to open up. Sometimes you don't want to ask for help. And it's being able to be just saying, hey, look, we've worked together before, but can you actually help me? Because sometimes it takes you off this pedestal where you're seeing yourself as the leader, and you're like, well, hey, I'm actually struggling in this area. And it's being able to actually do that to then go from good to great, or go to the next level. And whenever you think about business owners that you work with, and you work with billionaires, some of the highest performing business owners in the world, right? What's the difference between a billionaire and someone who's not?
I want to clarify something. I only worked with 2.
Yeah, that's fine. No, 2's good.
But like, it doesn't really matter, to be honest, or whether you're a billionaire or your business is, say, a small, medium business at that stage, because the problems I solve are human problems. It's not business problems. I'm not advising him on acquire this company or do a merger. But then
people would think someone like that has it all figured out, do they?
Fucking absolutely not. Some of them are the most wild, reckless individuals in the world, right? So one of them was so afraid of everything being taken away. He felt like a target, because he was a target. People were trying to do financial crime. People were trying to steal from him. He's been screwed over many times. So the money bit, it's more around, it really comes down to just fear and scarcity. And you might say, how can he have scarcity? But he still didn't feel enough. He was still anxious. He still couldn't sleep at night. Can you imagine employing tens of thousands of people across all your businesses and having that pressure of, well, actually, if I get this wrong, all of those lives across those various different companies are all impacted. So I think it's just a scale. At that level, it's just scale, and it's the scale of complexity and just everything that's going on. But outside of that, like, the problems are pretty much the same. Afraid of not being good enough, afraid of being unworthy, feeling anxious, overwhelmed, stressed. Like, that's it. And that doesn't really matter between the numbers. The level of complexity that they're dealing with is very different. But actually, the core problems around mental performance are, how do you become more calm? How do you become more clear? How do you get more done? Just like his training and nutrition, right? He still needs to eat well, sleep well, move well for him to perform. I don't think people get caught up on the billionaire or millionaire thing. I don't really see much of a difference.
It's just the same, and the approach is the same. And I think the reason I asked that is because so many people listening will think someone at that level in business and and in life must have it all figured out. And this is the lesson that I've learned from helping loads of high performing people, business owners, and some of the most successful people I know don't actually have it all figured out, and they realize that they've dropped the ball in an area of their life because they're trying to do it all, be it all, have it all, do all this stuff, and then the health end of things, they drop the ball in that, or for you it's the mental performance end, someone's dropped the ball in that. So it's being able to actually, for listening to this, people listening, to make them realize that they don't need to constantly compare, because often they could compare themselves to a billionaire because maybe they're in a financial situation where they're nowhere near that, which most of us are, all of us are really, bar the 0.0 whatever percent. But when you think about comparison, why does a human being compare themselves to another human being?
Because, again, it comes back to evolution. Why do you think humans got to where we got to?
Learning from each other, supporting each other, moving forward.
We're not the fastest in the jungle, are we? Are we? No. Right. We're not the strongest in the jungle.
Nope.
We're not the most athletic in the jungle.
Nope.
Are we the smartest? Well, depends on what you define as smart. You know, a lion's probably more smart at hunting with its bare claws, right? But part of the reason why we got here was teamwork. That's why monkeys are so scary, mate. If a gang of monkeys gang up on you, not only are they ripping your eyes out, ripping your testicles out, and really having a go at you, but there's so many of them, you can't shake them off. You've got one around your wrist, one around your ankles, one right in your face. That they're terrifying. So our ability to survive came down to how we could be accepted by the tribe. Because if we couldn't be accepted by the tribe, we weren't going to survive. How do we get accepted by the tribe? Well, we need to look at what everyone else is doing. We need to look at what's going on. So comparison is a survival instinct of, well, I need to be able to provide enough value to stay in the club. Because if I don't stay in the club, I'm going to end up dying. And it's as brutal as that. But again, we don't live in a world, we still need to be a part of society. Because if you're not a part of society, well then, you know, you're going to end up in prison because you did something very naughty. You didn't play by the rules that our societies have built. Or you're not going to get access to money, which isn't going to give you access to food, to shelter, to the things that you need in order to survive. So you need to be a part of a tribe, but it is a survival mechanism that keeps people comparing. And then we bring in the internet. So we used to compare based on our neighbours down the road. So we used to be in the same socioeconomic sphere. And all of a sudden the internet happened. So your next door neighbour that you're looking into might have a car that's slightly better than you, right? But now all of a sudden that window is your mobile phone in your hand looking into the house of a billionaire. And then all of a sudden you're seeing this 20-year-old who's a multi-millionaire, has sold some company or built this thing. And you're seeing, I don't know, Bukayo Saka, 22 years old, playing for England, playing for Arsenal. Before, they were like in the newspapers. They were so far removed, it was like they weren't really real. But when you're actually looking at the behind the scenes of their lives through a screen, then kind of feels like your neighbour. So then you get caught up, and I feel really sorry for that younger generation today, teenagers coming through now, where they're just comparing everything, material, how they look, how they sound, how they speak, and it's really, really sad. But it all comes back to survival.
And in any scenario, is that a good thing?
Comparison? Depends. Like if you're a soldier at war, you probably do need to compare yourself to the enemy because that's life or death. Most of us don't live in life or death. If we're being honest, we don't live in that. From my software sales day, we had to compare technology and we had to compare team, because if you want to win the business, you got to understand, right, well, which clients are we best placed to win, and how do we win those deals. When it comes to your own life as an individual, I don't think comparison is a good idea, because you start buying things, doing things, behaving and feeling in ways which isn't authentic to you. And I think, there's a lot of distress, emotional distress, based on people building identities and lives around what everyone else is doing, having a kid because everyone else is having a kid, buying a dog or a house because everyone else is buying a dog or buying a house. And what starts to happen is you kind of feel a little shortchanged because you start behaving based on everyone in your environment versus on what you really want. So I think that's a big thing in relationships as well. You know, each human beings have got needs, but no one human being can meet all of your needs. And you can either not express them and talk about them, or you can be truly authentic and go there. So I think in some senses you have to compare because it can be life or death. In other circumstances, it's optimal, but I don't think it's. I mean, I'm more of the belief that nothing's really black or white. It's very rarely is, unless we're talking about gravity. Gravity is on or off, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think so many people fall into that trap, and they'll always compare themselves in an area that they're weak to an area that someone else is strong. So maybe they're great with their health, they're great in their relationship, but their business isn't where they want to be, so they compare themselves in the business realm, but they're looking at someone else in one area of their life and just thinking about that. They're like, hey, that person's really good at business, but maybe their relationship's on the rock, maybe their health isn't in a great place. So it's being able to actually avoid that. And it's really interesting because I didn't know that before about the kind of reasons people might do it, and also then there's this kind of fear as to the next generation, how that's going to impact them. But also, do you think coaching and development is more accessible now, so people have more opportunity to progress and achieve the next level?
Well, just on the comparison thing, I don't think it's always comparison based on where people are weak. I think it's more based on where they're insecure.
Okay.
Because I've coached a lot of really successful business owners that are still comparing themselves to other business owners that they know, even though contextually they're a very successful business owner. So if they feel...
What's some examples of insecurities that a business owner might face?
Fear of failure. What if this all comes crashing down? What if I'm so successful I can't handle it and it all comes crashing down? Fear of judgment. You know, if I'm not winning, like, who does that make me? Comparison, obviously, to other people in the market, other people in their own space. What other insecurities? Like the financial insecurity. Even
when they have money.
Well, this was the best lesson I got working with a billionaire. Was he operated out of scarcity. He felt like he didn't have enough money. Guy had billions in assets, and he was like, yeah, but this, and I've got all these teams, and I've got this and this. And it's like, well, are you losing money? No, we're making loads of it. So that experience taught me that you can have immeasurable wealth and still feel like there's not enough. So I think scarcity is definitely a big one. And ultimately it's the internal achiever, feeling enough, like having to feel enough and using your business as a vehicle to go, look, I'm the man.
Yeah. I talk about things that are outside of your control and within your control with our clients. So maybe an injury is outside of their control. There's nothing they can do about it now, but what they can do is they can decide how they're going to operate next whenever it comes to their health, energy, performance, whether they're going to get their training in, whether they're going to eat well, or whether they're going to become victim to their circumstances. And I think for you right now, whenever you think about when someone is stuck, and I've actually forgot my question, so I'm going to go back to it. Oh yeah, sorry. Talking about being in control and being out of control. What's an example of when you think about mental performance, something that's outside of someone's control whenever it comes to achieving peak performance?
What is something that is out of control for somebody achieving peak performance from what I do?
Yeah, so like, you know, whenever, because sometimes there could be a chemical imbalance and it could be something that is completely outside of their control.
Gotcha. Yeah. So ADHD, autism, Asperger's, dyspraxia, dyslexia. You know, entrepreneurs and business owners are more likely to score. I already spoke about it earlier on the ADHD spectrum, like a hell of a lot higher in those areas for a number of different reasons. They don't see the world the same as everyone else, so they're able to spot opportunities that others can't. They're often very creative people, and the lines of code they have in their mind and what they can spot is also very different. So, you know, if you're born autistic or ADHD, yeah, you can't really control some of the fundamental challenges that you experience with that neurological wiring. But what you can do is you can set up your business and the way in which you operate and the way you think and feel towards your business. So actually that's a fucking advantage and a great thing versus something that's going to completely hamstring you. So with me and my ADHD, sleep, training, nutrition, all of that goes out the window. I'm scattered, I'm anxious, I'm afraid, I can't concentrate, I can't sit down. The bits I'm good at are the human bits. So podcasts, coaching one-to-one, speaking on stage, and coming up with ideas. Those are my strengths. Building SOPs, automations, financial reporting, like the actual implementation of building financial reports and doing what awful. Memorizing time, memorizing days.
When did you realize you had ADHD?
After a breakup in London, actually.
What age were you?
I was I'd have been 24.
Right.
24, 25. Honestly, like, understanding I had ADHD changed my life, changed my business, changed my relationships, changed everything, because it helped me realize that I'm not broken, because I had this belief that I was broken, there was always something wrong with me. But it just helped me realize I was wired different. So once I understood the neurological wiring, I was then able to put changes in place in my life, behaviors, habits, thoughts, feelings, people, mentors, coaches, that everything clicked. And not only was I happier and more calm and more at peace with myself and what I was doing, but I made a hell of a lot more money, and that I had a hell of a lot more healthy relationships just off of the back of understanding, that's what this is about. That life-shaking for me.
How did improving your mental performance improve your relationships?
Because if you're not in control and you're anxious and you're overwhelmed, and it's a problem that I have as an ADHDer, is being able to stay calm in the low dopamine moments. Because if I'm in a low dopamine moment, I want to get up and do something, or I want to just have an outrageous conversation about aliens out of nowhere, because actually my dopamine's not high enough. Or sometimes I can struggle to concentrate in conversations in just the day-to-day life stuff. So as a result, you can emotionally check out and people think you don't care, but it's actually a neurological thing. So when you can start to communicate, look, it's not that I don't care, I'm just understimulated, and there'll be moments where I'm going to mentally check out, because that's what my brain chemistry does. But it doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I don't care about you. And I think that for me has always been something really difficult, is relationships, is being able to be close with someone and then feel like I do care, I am present. Because this happens with business owners all the time. You're so wrapped up in your work, you're in the room but you're not there. So learning, I've got propensity to be like that. What can I put in place to bring me back? So when I am with my family or with my partner, I'm in and I'm focused. Without a doubt, like, it will change everything.
How would someone who's listening to this know if they have ADHD or they should get tested or whatever it may be?
Well, what I'll do, I'll ping you a link. So I've got a free ADHD diagnostic test. So it's based on the DSM-5.
Okay.
So it'll ask you a series of questions, and then it'll tell you whether you're unlikely, likely, or highly likely. And this is the first port of call for someone to go, maybe I do need to go away and either get a diagnosis or go and get some coaching off the back of it and understand, right, well, how can I nail that? So that's totally free. So if you're listening, just click on the link below and it'll be in there. I mean, that is really the test, the DSM-5. That's the one that's going to sort of give you basically, should you go and explore it with a professional or not? That'll be the first thing.
Yeah, 100%. No, this has been great and really enjoyed the conversation. And tell us where we can find you. Obviously, I'll attach that sheet below, but yeah, tell us where we can find your stuff and check you out. Yeah, so I'm not really marketing much these days. If you head to www.kyranoneill.com, I'll send over a link, KYRANONEILL.com. That's my Kyran O'Neill consulting website. Spelled Kyran, pronounced Kyran. If there's any coaches listening, check out my coaching company, Total Mental Performance. That's Total Mental Performance on Instagram, or www.totalmentalperformance.com. And yeah, if you get in touch in any of those channels, then I'll always come back to you whenever I can. Epic. It's been a pleasure, mate. Thanks so much for coming on. Cool. And which camera on this one? Yeah. So yeah, if you like this episode, don't forget to share it with your friends. We really appreciate you tuning in, and I would love to hear from you. If anything Kyran has said that resonated with you, send me a message and I can pass on his details for you. Other than that, I'll speak to you soon.